I Don't Like Ghost Stories. Written by Jack Likes Snacks. I don't like ghost stories. They're frustrating. There's nothing scary about an invisible being moving things around your house. It's annoying. I love horror, but anything that has to do with ghosts or angry spirits, well, I'm done. I like those realistic stories. You know, the ones where there's a creepy stalker lurking around in your backyard. Or maybe you're thinking you're going crazy, but it's really some lady living in your house that you weren't aware of. I mean, what's a ghost going to do? Fade into a wall? Make moaning noises at 3 o'clock in the morning? Like, just shut up, you know? Ghosts are dumb. But a person, they can do anything. They can leave notes in your mailbox. Knock on your door aggressively at any time of the day. It doesn't have to be 3 in the morning, though it adds to the creepy factor, but it isn't necessary. They can call you and leave weird, almost cryptic messages. I mean, the options are endless. I'm in no way a prodigy when it comes to writing the best story. The best horror, that is, but I don't think it would be all that hard. You just find what scares you the most and you write about it. Even if ghosts scare you the most, which is baby stuff, write about it. What would you do in that specific situation? Don't go overboard, though, or try to think too far into it. What we think we would do and what we would actually do are normally two different things. The best horror story isn't just about the best boogeyman. It's also about the reactions of the characters. Are they dumb? Are they smart? Do they do the logical thing? Will we be able to predict those who are going to die first? And most importantly, at least from my point of view, how realistic are you willing to make this? Because the more realistic, the worse or better it can be. Sometimes reality is boring. In fact, most of the time, it's boring. I believe in simplicity when it comes to horror. Sometimes less is more. There's always room for another extension if you want to tell more of the story. But that's a whole different topic. It's almost harder to make a second of anything, especially if number 1 was brilliant and now you have already set the bar so high. But anyway about it, you have to start with 1 before you can get 2. Anyway, I was on a mission to make and produce the best horror story there was. A found footage horror story. Now I know what you're thinking. Found footage. Those are the worst ones yet. And I totally agree with you. But that's why I was so set on making one. I wanted to defy the odds, to do the impossible. It's always the same thing with found footage. A group of kids go somewhere, doesn't really matter where. The woods, a haunted house, an infected apartment complex. There are endless situations. And one by one, the kids get picked off by whatever boogeyman it is this time. And then someone finds the footage. But in reality, we all know that they're fake. That ruins the whole illusion. We know in reality, if someone found a tape of something gone awry, there's no way they would share that with the world. The police would hold on to the footage for as long as possible. And if they did share it with us, the public, we wouldn't see the acts of slaughter. There's a big difference between we know it's fake and we can share it to, well, some kid got his head chopped off. It's real, even if we say it's fake, and, we can't show that to the public, so. Now, I'm not saying that it's okay to show gruesome acts of violence, but I'm saying that we wouldn't be allowed to see it. But if someone found the footage thinking it to be fake, in some sort of online ARG, they may share it online for all of us to see, and no one would know the difference. Until that one person, the one who always takes things a little too far, reports the video. causing a chain reaction resulting in the police or people of the same degree having to investigate. I guess it's all about perspective. Anyway, my story starts in the winter of last year. When you think of winter, we all have some perspective on the season. Cold, wet, freezing, Christmas, horrible, whatever. It's just one of those universal things that we as humans share. I was working at a bar, making drinks, waiting tables. It was a wonderful job. Full of all kinds of people. Cute, sly, cocky, smooth, weird, freaks, perverts, you name it. It wasn't a big bar, and it wasn't the only one in the town that I lived in. But it definitely had its nights. Aside from working at the bar, I was trying to find a creative outlet in my free time. I was fond of photography and making videos. Just any kind of videos. It didn't take me long to find out that YouTube was a great outlet for my creativity. So I invested my free time into it, making content about the strange and unusual, going nose deep into this pit of wonderfully creepy things that people seemed obsessed with. For a whole year, I stuck at home, searching the web for anything that was just a bit out of the norm. Murderers, stalkers, unexplained events, weird glitches in the Matrix. But never ghost. I just hated ghost. Anytime someone recommended that I go somewhere that was labeled as haunted, I just couldn't take the conversation seriously after that. What was people's fascination with ghosts? They weren't scary. They were stupid. Unfortunately for me, my close friend Patrick convinced me to go with him on a hunt for a certain grave. This grave sat in the middle of the woods, and it was supposed to be haunted. You had to go at the witching hour if you wanted to experience anything. So we did, you know. If you don't agree, sometimes you have that chance of being called a chicken. And I wasn't a chicken. We got to the wooded area around midnight. Why so early? How long did Patrick think it was going to take to find a haunted gravestone? I couldn't help but think to myself that this was beyond stupid. When we pulled up to the gravel parking lot that sat in front of the wooded entrance, I scanned the area. There were trees on both sides of us as far as our eyes could see. And just from looking from the parking lot, I could tell that the wooded area was deep, filled with mysterious animals lurking, waiting. Animals could be scary. Mountain lions, bobcats, raccoons, possibly. There are plenty of stories out there speaking of wild animals stalking humans. Patrick was already out of his vehicle searching through his bag, from what I could see. Breath was flooding out of his mouth in clouds. I slowly made my way out to meet him, hoping this would be a quick trip and we could then go home. I had other things to research, things of more importance than some ghostly tomb. I wanted to be in the warmth of my own home. Neither one of us had thought about the cold when we gathered our supplies earlier that day. A big coat on each of us, but no gloves, no hats. Just a coat that was no match for the wind that blew through at just that second, making me tense up and huddle against my bag. "Hey man, you brought your camera, right? Would be cool if we could get some ghost on film, don't you think?" Patrick asked, heaving his bag over his shoulder. "Yeah man, sure," I said as I pulled my camera out of my bag and hung it around my neck. Humoring him, I turned on the camera, and I pointed it towards the abyss of the trails. "It's too dark, my camera just isn't picking anything up, but I'll keep it on just in case." And with that, we made our way down through the darkness. I assumed Patrick knew where we were going, so I let him lead the way, falling back from time to take in the noises around us. Aside from the fact that we were there for ghost stories, it was a nice night. There were locusts singing their songs, water rushing through the river below us, leaves rustling. The stars were bright, and I couldn't help but be in awe of them. We had been walking for a long time before I came to the conclusion that Patrick was just spitballing this whole situation. He didn't know where the grave was. I could tell by his demeanor that he was just enjoying the possibility that something ghostly might happen. It was about the fourth time of falling back to take in the sight when I heard Patrick screech in excitement. He had found the grave, I assumed to myself. Running over to him, I realized how far he had gotten in the minute I stopped. When I caught up to him, I was panting and a bit confused. "Dude, how did you get so far up here? I only stopped for a minute." Patrick looked at me, but he didn't seem excited, no. He looked concerned. Pulling my gaze away from him, I inspected the spot where he was standing. What I saw lay in front of me was in fact not a grave, but a woman. Patrick's screech was definitely not of excitement, but of shock. I looked over at him, bewildered by this scene. The woman was laying face down on the icy ground. Her skin was almost purple and frost was starting to climb up her fingers. The only thing this woman was wearing was a pair of purple underwear, leaving her body bare to the environment around her. "Dude," Patrick stammered. Yeah, I couldn't even think." "We need to call 911, I said, and I pulled out my cell phone, not even thinking, and I dialed 911. But to my surprise, there was nothing. No busy tone, no static, nothing. This wasn't happening. It wasn't real. I started pacing. I started freaking out. Not in the sense of a delusional paranoid, but in a sense that I had to be dreaming. This had to be some kind of dream, a joke, something my buddies had decided to prank me with to prove that reality could be scary. This wasn't happening. "Nope, this isn't real, dude," I said. And I started pacing, mumbling to myself, saying, this isn't real, over and over. Patrick looked at me, bewildered. I watched him kneel down in the dirt and place his index finger and middle finger on the girl's neck. "She's got a pulse. Try calling again," he said. "Why don't you call? You have a cell phone too," I yelled at him. "What's wrong with you? Here." He threw his phone at me and proceeded to roll the woman over. "Why are you being so weird? Just call 911, he told me. I shakily punched in the numbers and waited, but again, nothing. There was nothing. When did cell phones start to have blind spots in the woods, I thought. Why was that? "Get over here and help me. We have to get her back to the car," Patrick yelled, bringing me back to the situation at hand. I ran over to him and helped him get the woman in a cradle position in his arms, ready to catch her if he slipped in the dark. We began our journey back towards the entrance. If we were cold, this girl had to be freezing. I knew I hadn't brought anything more than a coat. Did this girl need it more than I did? Possibly. But would I give it up knowing this whole thing was just a ploy to make me see how this was what I needed for my channel? Anyway, Patrick and I walked in silence for what seemed like forever. As we walked closer to the entrance, which seemed a lot further than I had anticipated, I started to feel a peace come over me. It was like contentment. I was feeling normal. I was no longer in shock, but more in the feeling of relaxation. And I came to my senses at last. "Hey man, let me carry her for a minute," I said. "I'm sure she's getting heavy." Patrick stopped and looked at me for a second. "Hey man, I'm fine now. I don't know what my deal was back there. I'm good, I swear," I told him. He nodded at me, and I folded my arms under his where he slowly let her slide into my arms. I was expecting to bobble on my feet, but this girl was a lot lighter than I had expected. Patrick and I walked further and further, but with every step we took, it felt like we were taking 3 steps back. There was no way that the entrance had been this far in. There was no way that we had walked this far. Neither of us said anything, but we could tell that we were both getting worried. Not because of the dark, of course. I was over that. But because we had a girl passed out in her underwear, barely breathing. This looked bad. This looked so very bad. But we were determined to get her somewhere, to save her. The whole walk, I couldn't stop thinking about my spaz out. I couldn't stop thinking about my paranoia of reality. And at this time, I hadn't chalked it up to anything but shock. "Hey!" Patrick screamed. I looked over at Patrick. "What's up, man?" I asked him. Patrick looked over at me, worry smeared across his face. "Man, I hope this girl didn't come out here with a bunch of guys or something." "Well, she's in her underwear, but I hope not either," I said. I just think it's strange, Not so much strange that people would be out here. I mean, look at us. But I never thought I would be in a situation like this, Patrick said. Yeah, same, I said. Whoa. Did you hear that? Patrick said. No, what? I was curious, but I chalked it up to being a breeze or an animal. You didn't hear that? Patrick asked. Look, now's not the time for jokes, I said. No, really. I thought I heard someone talking. Patrick explained as he looked into the darkness on the right of us. It sounded like it came from that direction. I didn't hear anything. I'm sure it's nothing. Hey, dude, finally, I proclaimed, nodding towards the entrance. Man, see if your phone's got service. You still have my phone, Patrick said, still looking towards the direction of the voices that he claimed he heard. Ah, you're right. It's gotta be in one of my pockets, I said. You better not have dropped it. You'll have to buy me a new one, he said. Take the girl and I'll check. I stopped to give Patrick the girl and I searched my pockets. I noticed at that time that I had dropped my camera in the process of the shock that I had experienced earlier. But thankfully, I hadn't dropped either of our phones. Patrick was still glaring off into the abyss when I pulled my eyes towards him. Man, what are you doing? There wasn't anyone talking aside from us, I assured him. Yeah, you're probably right, he said. Hearing him, I pressed the numbers for 911 and was filled with joy when the operator came through. Explaining the whole situation, she took our information and made it clear that people would be waiting for us outside the local hospital. This girl was getting help. We had helped this girl. Aside from the basic needs, the operator told me what to watch for. I felt very proud of ourselves and happy that this girl was going to be okay. I think I was more thankful when we actually approached Patrick's car with no trouble. Patrick, on the other hand, looked confused, dazed almost. I didn't ask him about it. I should have, but I didn't. I just thought that shock was taking him over and that he would be better when we got this girl somewhere safe. But he wasn't. When we got to the hospital, we explained the whole situation to the officers who were waiting for us. They didn't seem to suspect us, but I'm still sure that it looked a bit bad. I wanted to stick around and make sure that the girl was safe, but the officers insisted that we go home and get some sleep. They wanted us to let the shock wear off, and if they had any questions, they would contact us. We did everything that we could, but it was far from over.